Good morning, everyone. I'm Talal Marika, your host for What's Your Brew. Today we have with us a very, very unique guest, Mr. Shiyan Jayaweera, Director of Marketing in Hemas Consumer Brands, from shaping household names to driving innovation behind the scenes. Today's guest is a powerhouse. In Sri Lanka's corporate world, as a Director of Marketing at Hemas Consumer Brands, Shiyan Jayaweera brings a wealth of experience in building iconic brands and understanding what truly connects a modern consumer to a brand. Mr. Shiyan, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Taran.
Amazing. So, Mr. Shiyan, as you spoke even before the podcast, your uniqueness in marketing has led us to bring you here on the hot seat. You have been in renowned FMCGs. Why do you like it? What keeps you there so long?
Okay, so I think if you talk about, FMCG, everyone knows it's one of the most dynamic industries, around. Most people, want to work there because they say, that's where marketing kind of happens. For me, yes, it is dynamic because of the competitive context. There are so many competitors in the market, so much of innovation happening. But what's interesting for me in FMCG is actually the consumer context. Consumers have evolved so much, over the years, and especially in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, there's been huge change happening in terms of their perceptions, in terms of trends, in terms of what they're looking for from brands in the FMCG space. And I think that's something that keeps me excited because it's about really understanding what that insight is for consumers and then solving those problems. So that is something that, gets me up in the morning and keeps bringing me to work in the morning, and I would say it's one of the most exciting industries to work in.
Purpose. Purpose gets you up every morning.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that Hemas has integrated purpose into branding. Was there a moment where you knew like this wasn't just a new strategy you're trying to impose on marketing, this was like a mission? This was something more than just a strategy.
Mm-hmm. So I think if you take on brands, and especially within the Hemas Consumer Brands portfolio, we have a lot of legacy brands that have been in the market for over 20, 30 years. I think there comes a time in any brand's sort of journey when you realize you need to exist for something more than just, the commercials, than just, revenue or market share. And consumers also expect that from you. Consumers also say, you're the market leader. What are you bringing to the table? What are you doing, for society? And I think that's where, where it stems for purpose. So if we take our flagship, Baby Sharami, it's a brand that's been the market leader. It's been in the market for over 60 years. It's been the market leader for most of that time. But then we realized there has to be something more than just providing consumer solutions around skin cleansing, skin care, and hygiene in the baby category. It had to be something more than that. And that's when we actually realized, so if I were to give you an example of the purpose, we kind of understood that in Sri Lanka, that there are over 300,000 cases of child accidents in the home. On an annual basis, and that's something that can easily be preventable from better education and better practices. So that's something that Hemas took on as its purpose for the Baby Sharami brand, and we've been doing work around that for many years. So whether it be parental clinics to educate parents around child safety, we did a safety booklet that's disseminated free of charge to parents, and it's our partnerships with the different medical experts like pediatricians and community physicians. We realized that there has to be something more, so we took that on as a challenge. We've been working with the Ministry of Health. There's a hotline also in place for that. So that's some of the work that we're actually doing to see whether, as a brand, we can sort of support the mission to bring that number down. Because that's not a number that needs to be as high as it is. And that's something as a brand that we've taken on as a purpose, and that's something that goes beyond our strategy in the market, but it actually has now become our mission. So building that safer world for our future generations is something that we are proud to say that we are a part of.
It's an honor to be speaking to such an organization that has taken on such big responsibilities. Mr. Shiyan, from Diva to Fems, your brand uplifts underrepresented voices. Like, what's the real ROI of doing something positive as such?
Okay, that's a really good question actually. Even when I was thinking about it, I'll answer it with an example. And on the Fems brand, I think Fems as a brand in the feminine hygiene category has actually been on this advocacy journey around menstrual health education as well as ending period poverty for many years now. And we do a lot of work around that, and that's also well documented. But the example I want to give is actually we get on practically a daily basis consumers who write into us on our social platforms. We have actually an initiative called the Her Foundation, and there's a website there. They write into us on that, actually asking to partner with us, to volunteer with us, to actually provide education, to join our initiatives, to provide education around menstrual hygiene and ending period poverty. There are actually those who do even say they are ready to even donate towards this cause. So I think for me, the real sort of ROI in this is collaboration. It's people, it's a society and brands coming together for a common cause. So I think that's something that even we didn't really think about, or we didn't set out to achieve, but it's something that naturally came about. So that you can't really measure in financial terms, but actually the benefit that you finally see on the society and improvements in menstrual hygiene and all is something that I think even you hear today that it's a national cause. So you have people, and when I say, there are consumers writing into us, these are varied from doctors to teachers, to just people who just want to make a difference or just want to add their voice and their effort to this journey. And that to us has been amazing. So I would say the real ROI is collaboration. And that's something as a brand and as marketers, I feel we really need to kind of strive for.
Really good question regarding that. So what's the hardest thing about telling stories for brands that are household names? Like, they want to be a cultural change maker, but what's the hardest thing about telling those stories?
So for us, Talal, I think if you take at Hemas, our brands are, like I mentioned, our legacy brands. So they've been in the market for 20 years, 30 years. And what we see, and this is a challenge that legacy brands have, is consumers feel they know all about the brand. They know what the brand is about, they know what the brand stands for. So even if the brand wants to take a new stance, tell a new story, that's something that, the consumer sometimes feels, that they already know. So you might actually see them really shut that message out. So that's the challenge for us as marketers. How do you tell that story in a new way? If it's a new story, how do you tell it in a new way that really sort of connects with consumers and engages them? And I believe this is a tougher task for legacy brands and brands that have been around for a long period of time because they have that familiarity with consumers. Whereas new brands might find it a little more easier to do. So that's something that I think finding that new way of telling this story, bringing it out in a creative way that engages consumers, that tells the story in a way that the consumer feels that they understand and that they really want to be a part of, I think is the tough stance for brands. So the short answer is I don't think it's easy, but it all depends on that marketer's creativity to tell that story in a new and engaging way so that they break the consumer's pre-held notions about a brand and that they can then connect with that consumer and tell that story on behalf of that brand.
So you basically give them a voice, find a way to give them a voice.
The brand has to have a voice, but sometimes it's a voice and a message that's delivered in a new way. So that's the tough task, because if you try to tell a story in the same way, the consumer shuts you out. They say, okay, I know the story you're trying to say. So you have to actually put it in a new way to them so that they understand if you're actually trying to tell them a new story. And especially that's true of the legacy brands.
What's one behavior or belief Sri Lankan marketers need to unlearn fast?
Okay, so I'll go back to the consumer, because I bring out the consumer a lot, and you see this in, marketers sort of holy grail is the consumer and understanding consumer insight. So when you take the consumer today, it's for them. Their thinking has changed. Their perceptions, their attitude towards brands have changed. So for the marketer, it's actually really important to really connect with them, really tell the benefit. If you take 5 years ago, 10 years ago, It was all about having a brand or all about brand familiarity, brand awareness. So if I knew the brand, if my parents used it, my mother used it, my mother's mother used it, then then that's the brand I use. Today you have to tell the brand story in a new way. You have to actually connect with the consumer, because today's consumer is saying, yeah, okay, I know this brand name, but what's it doing for me? So I think one of the things that marketers today maybe need to do is actually sort of think a little more long term. So today, I think maybe as marketers, we get very tactical. We think about the immediate short term, because of course we all have targets and objectives and KPIs to deliver. So we think about the today instead of thinking about the tomorrow. So I think that's where we need to actually change the story, because if you think about the tomorrow, you're thinking long term, you're building a brand. So today, when you think short term, you're thinking about today, and you're thinking very commercial terms, very transactional. It's a sale, it's a promotion, something like that. But whereas when you think long term, then you're thinking building a brand, building a benefit for the consumer, which is something that really consumers want. Yes, a promotion is important. It's not that it's not. But if you're really thinking long term, what would be best for the consumer is actually that benefit that you can give them in a better way. So the long term is always better, both for the consumer and obviously for the brand, rather than thinking short term. So if there's one behavior change that I would sort of advocate for, is think more long term, don't think tactical.
That's amazing advice. It's amazing. How do you see the future of marketing in South Asia more? Is it like more human, or is it like going towards more tech, or like something else entirely?
So I think that's the hot topic these days. And I think in any even boardroom level discussion, marketers asked, okay, now what's the next AI thing that you're bringing in? So I think the tech revolution is not coming. The tech revolution is already here. I think marketing is one industry or one function that's going to be completely transformed by tech. But again, it's not tech for the sake of tech. So I mean, if I take AI, it's not AI for the sake of doing AI. You have to understand, yes, AI has huge users, but it's not just for that. You need to understand how to channel that to deliver end of the day, what your brand requires and what the consumer requires. So for that, you need the human element. So be it ingenuity, be it creativity, be it empathy, tech can't deliver that. Of course, if you ask the tech developers, they say it can, but tech, I don't think, can deliver that. You need the human element. So the human element a marketer brings. So it's about marrying the two. How do you marry the tech with the ingenuity? And that's and the human element. So it's that element that's going to really define marketers going forward. And I don't think it's kind of a Sri Lankan context thing or an Asian context thing. It's a global context thing. I would say that pace of adoption has really picked up. So what was maybe happening, I would say, in the Western markets came over to Asia maybe 5 years down the line. Now it's happening in 1 to 2 years. So whatever we are seeing right now out there is going to reach these markets, in the Sri Lankan market in the next, I would say, 12 to 18 months. So marketers have to rapidly gear up to face these challenges with tech coming in. Because it's not just consumers, it's not just marketers or brands that are using tech. It's consumers also. We were talking about, the use of ChatGPT. Today, an 11-year-old can tell you the difference between ChatGPT and DeepSeek. So it's coming, and so marketers have to really gear up. But where the real sort of skill will be in marrying the tech with the human element, ingenuity, empathy, creativity. That's going to be the marketer's sort of secret sauce.
The fact that you just explained how, like, in any side of the world, anyone knows the difference between DeepSeek and ChatGPT. So it's already here, the revolution's already begun. It's not like it's yet to come. Mr. Shiyan, what's your personal brew before a big pitch data, like instinct storytelling, or is it like a quiet moment for you? Like, everyone has their own brew. For me, it might be to take a run, to go for a walk. For you, it might be something totally different, or maybe similar. So what's your brew before a big pitch data?
So for me, especially before a big pitch or a big sort of meeting where I need to sort of make my case, I really go back to the data. So data can tell a story, and data doesn't lie. So it's really about understanding your numbers, using your numbers not for the sake of using numbers, but for the sake of telling the story. So for me, storytelling, especially when it comes to a big pitch or a meeting, it's about using the data to tell your story. So that's kind of what I've seen work for me personally, and of course for different individuals it might be different, but that's something that really I have found really works for me. I do like to have a quiet moment, but most of the time that doesn't happen. Just before big pitch, it's a mad rush that kind of happens. But wherever possible, I try to stay close to the numbers when telling a story. So it's data 100%, of the time. Use that to tell the story, because that also not just does it help convince the party that you're trying to convince, but it also actually helps you craft your story more clearly and really helps you define what you're trying to say. So I think for me personally, it's always been about data and the numbers.
That's true. They do say one of the best assets or skills you can have as a young business person, man or woman, is learning how to articulate what you're trying to do or what you want to do.
Yes.
Right. What's a good advice you would give young marketers who are aiming to be someone like you, someone unique as yourself? What's a good advice you could give them?
So one advice I give is actually, like we as marketers build brands. It's actually build your own brand, and build your own brand. Comes with a few things. I would just put it very simply in three simple words: values. Have your values. Put in the hard work and deliver the results. So, and that can be from the start of your career to even if you're heading a function. Those three, if you really define what your values are, what you really stand for, having the hard work to get into the details, get into the numbers, and then of course having the performance to back it. Because what far too often happens is, marketers, they try to get as much varied experience as possible, work in multiple categories as possible. Not that that's not important, but sometimes it's not about your brand. It's not about having the flashier the designation that you have. It's not about that. It's about actually having the work to back up, having the experience to back it up based on what you have done. So I think that's something, because what a lot of young marketers face, and what I've seen is, up to a certain point it might work, but beyond a certain point you start to face challenges because you have not put in the hard work at the beginning. You have not got detailed oriented, you have not really understood what the brand is about, and you may or may not have the results also under your belt to show it. So the one advice I would give is those three: values, hard work, and have the results under your belt, and you will go far. Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. That's some of the best advice that could come from, especially someone like you, Mr. Shiyan. And if you're saying it, that means we have to take it. You're one of the most unique marketers that's been known entirely in the island-wide corporate sector here. And just want to say thank you very much, Mr. Shiyan, for being with us today, for giving you insightful knowledge. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Taral, and thank you to the entire Barista team for having me. It was a fantastic experience.
That's all for our conversation with Mr. Shiyan. Stay tuned in for What's Your Brew, for what's coming next. Have a good day.